Making headlines tonight. The King of Cambodia, King Norodom Sihamoni, sent a letter to the Queen of England, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, extending wishes on the occasion of her Platinum Jubilee. Chairman of the Permanent Security Command for the election, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King states his high appreciation for the armed forces and the relevant authorities at all levels who have worked hard to maintain security, public order and social security, facilitating the smooth conduct of the stages of this year's elections 2022. Russia's UN ambassador storms out of the UN Security Council meeting on Monday the 6th of June as European Council President, addressed the 15-member body and accused Moscow of fueling a global food crisis with the invasion of Ukraine. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson survives a confidence vote on Monday. A large rebellion in his Conservative Party over the so-called Partygate scandal dealt a blow to his authority and leaves him struggling to win them back. And finally, treasures. Real-life treasures have been recently discovered off Colombia, with centuries-old shipwrecks completed with gold pouring treasure. This is the Daily Roundup on the EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. I'm Anthony Ellis. The King of Cambodia, His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni, has sent a letter to the Queen of England, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, extending wishes of occasion of her Platinum Jubilee. In a royal message dated the 2nd of June of 2022, His Majesty King Norodom Sihamoni wrote, "As Your Majesty is celebrating your Platinum Jubilee combined with Your Majesty's birthday, I have much pleasure in extending my warmest greetings and congratulations to Your Majesty, together with my best wishes the continued success and longevity." The Queen of England's Platinum Jubilee commemorates her 70th years in the service. Queen Elizabeth II is the first British monarch in history to meet this milestone. The Chairman of the Permanent Security Command for the election, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King, has stated the high appreciation for the armed forces and relevant authorities at all levels who have worked hard to maintain security, public order and social security, facilitating the smooth conduct of all the stages of the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council elections in 2022. EAC News reporter Dekanin has more details.
On Monday, 6th of June, the Minister of Interior and the President of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, Deputy Prime Minister Saw King, thanked all the authorities and the armed forces for their participation in the prevention and resolution of inactivity in line with the principles of professionalism and neutrality, in order to create more favorable conditions and a secure environment for citizens and political parties to compete in the election and be able to exercise their rights and freedoms according to their will. The Deputy Prime Minister said the process was successful and under a calm, peaceful and non-violent environment. The 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council election has shown to the national and international communities a level of maturity and autonomy, reflecting Cambodia's commitment to implementing the principles of multi-party liberal democracy as enshrined in the Constitution of the Kingdom of Cambodia. Deputy Prime Minister Saw King also took the opportunity to thank members of the public throughout the kingdom for participating in the maintenance of security, public order, as well as obeying the rules and procedures which contributed to the smooth, free, correct and fair conduct of this important national event. Speaking at a meeting with stakeholders to summarize the general events of the 5th Commune Sangkat Council election 2022 on Sunday evening, National Election Committee Chairman Bright Jan said that despite some issues such as bad weather, the election went ahead as planned. He revealed that in the run-up to the election, there had been a breach of the election aggression plan in which the Permanent Security Command of the election and the National Election Committee had issued guidelines on strengthening security for election events to control the situation and to ensure the election ran smoothly and safely. He added, at the same time, due to the good cooperation between the mechanism and the election security at all levels, with the National Election Committee and election committees at all levels, our election process was successful and held in a calm, secure and safe environment with social order, no violence and no threats present. Dekanin, EAC News.
The Minister of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation, Vong Sut, thanked the Cambodian People's Party Working Group in 8 communities in Pon Krek District for working tirelessly with the local people to gain the support of the public and to win 19 seats during the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council elections. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
The Minister of Social Affairs, Veterans and Youth Rehabilitation, Vong Sut, and Sak Leng, the chairman of Tabong Khmom Provincial Party Committee, held a meeting to review the results of the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council Election 2022 in Ponia Krek District, Tabangkamam Province on Tuesday, 7th June 2022. The minister said he highly appreciated the achievements of the past work, showing the joint efforts of the CPP at all levels in Ponia Krek district, especially the active cooperation of the working group of the CPP in helping to develop each commune to grow in all areas, while maintaining security, order, and safety, improving public services to the people, and responding in a timely and effective manner to the needs of the people. At the same time, the minister advised CPP members at all levels in Ponia Krek district to pay attention to the requests from the local people in each commune to continue seeking popularity for their work activities to invite warmth, trust, love, support, and hearts of the people to the party to vote for the CPP to win in the upcoming 2023 general election. According to the chairman of the party committee of Ponia Krek district, Lee Sopialin, there were 71,004 people in this district who came to vote, equal to 84.01% of registered voters and 87.74% of the total number of party members. As a result, the CPP won 71 out of 80 seats in the district and held the position of commune chief and first deputy in all 8 communes. The Candlelight Party, on the other hand, won 9 out of 80 seats. He added, comparing these results to the 4th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council election of 2017, there was an increase of 17,685 votes and an increase of 19 seats. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
A senior official of the Candlelight Party, Son Che, has announced that the party will accept the seat it has won on the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council election, despite overall dissatisfaction with the results of the election, and the party does not believe were free and fair. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has the story.
Speaking at the party's press conference on the afternoon of Monday, 6th of June, Son Chai said that the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council election ended without freedom and justice because the party believes it was not conducted in a fair environment and that citizens were not free in their political participation and in expressing their opinions. Additionally, the Candlelight Party state that it has been under pressure from the stage of preparing candidate lists to the stage of registering observers. The senior party representative further alleges that Candlelight Party candidates faced intimidation before the election, saw troops mobilized against them, received reports of voters being intimidated on election day, and overall accused the National Election Commission of being too biased towards the ruling party. Regarding the reports of mobilization and intimidation, Son Chai could not confirm to EAC News at the time of the press conference that further evidence would be provided for these claims at a later date.
យើងប្រកាសថាជាការបោះឆ្នោតមិនសេរីមិនយុត្តិធម៌បានន័យថាយើងអត់ទទួលស្គាល់ទេបាទយើងអត់ទទួលស្គាល់ទេតែយើងចង់ឲ្យកែលម្អឲ្យថ្ងៃក្រោយវាមានយុត្តិធម៌ត្រឹមត្រូវឡើងលទ្ធផលនឹងវាមិនឆ្លុះបញ្ចាំងពីឆន្ទៈពលរដ្ឋទេហើយសួរថាយកឬអត់សួរច្បាស់ទៅបាទយើងយកអ្វីដែលជារបស់យើងយក
The senior party official announced the party's acceptance of the seats it has won from the 5th Mandate Commune Sangkat Council election without any protest. Following the conclusion of the Commune Council election day on Sunday, 5th of June, some parties issued statements assessing the election situation in Cambodia, stating that they saw Sunday's nationwide election as fair, just, and non-threatening. The Cambodian Youth Party and Khmer United Party issued statements on Monday morning saying that the Commune Sangkat Council election process in Cambodia was conducted smoothly, with good security, good order, and a free and fair environment with no threat posed to justice, especially for the voters who came out in large numbers. The president of the Cambodian Youth Party, Pixra, told EAC News that the party released this statement to show their participation in revealing the truth about the election process in Cambodia, which he said was more democratic and more mature.
យើងចូលរួមការបោះឆ្នោតមិនមែនត្រឹមតែចង់ឲ្យប្រជាពលរដ្ឋមកគាំទ្រទេយើងចង់ដឹងពីបរិយាកាសនៃការរៀបចំការបោះឆ្នោតនៅកម្ពុជាផងដែរដើម្បីយើងតាមដានអំពីលទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យនៅកម្ពុជាចំពោះទៅរកការអភិវឌ្ឍនៅថ្ងៃខាងមុខទៀតអញ្ចឹងគណៈបកយុវជនជាបានសង្កេតឃើញតាំងពីដំណាក់កាលនៃការចុះឈ្មោះបេក្ខជនគណៈបកនយោបាយដំណាក់កាលការឃោសនារហូតដល់ដំណាក់កាលចុងក្រោយគឺប្រជាពលរដ្ឋទៅបោះឆ្នោតនៅថ្ងៃទី5កន្លងទៅនឹងតែម្ដងអញ្ចឹង3ដំណាក់កាលហ្នឹងឯងដែលយើងមើលឃើញថាការប្រព្រឹត្តទៅនៃការបោះឆ្នោតនៅកម្ពុជាមានភាពល្អប្រសើរហើយទាំងអ្នកនយោបាយទាំងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋមានភាពចាស់ទុំជាងមុនហើយលទ្ធិប្រជាធិបតេយ្យកំពុងតែរីកលូតលាស់ល្អក្នុងការអនុវត្តនៅកម្ពុជាយើងបាទ
The fifth mandate Commune Sangkat Council election 2022 was held on Sunday, 5th of June, with 17 political parties participating in total. These parties competed to hold 11,622 commune council seats from 1,652 communes and districts nationwide. The number of people who went to vote was close to 7.3 million people, which is about 80% of the 9.2 million registered voters. On the morning of Monday, 6th of June, international observers also held a press conference announcing that the 5th of June election was calm, transparent, free, and in accordance with international law. A representative of the international observers, Hubert Moa Haddad, said that he has been involved in many election observation missions, and he found the Cambodian election to be of an equal standard to the French elections he has participated in before. Dekanin, EAC News.
The chairman of the Cambodian Human Rights Committee, Kiel Rami, said on the fifth mandate Commune Sangkat Council elections results reflect the logistic basics of all parties. EAC's reporter Dashana Guchin has the story.
Speaking after a meeting with the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights in Cambodia, the chairman of the CHRC, Cao Remy, said that the results of the fifth mandate Commune Sangkat Council election were logical, based on the distribution of support between the Cambodian People's Party with more than 5 million votes and the Candlelight Party with 1.6 million votes.
យើងប្រៀបធៀបនៅលទ្ធផលសម្លេងឆ្នោតគាំទ្រ 2017 កន្លងមកគឺគណៈបកប្រជាជនកម្ពុជាទទួលបានសម្លេង 3 លានកន្លះគណៈបកសង្គ្រោះជាតិដែលមានគណៈបកភ្លើងទៀននិងគណៈបកសិទ្ធិមនុស្សរួមចូលគ្នាបាន 3 លានអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលគាត់បាត់ដៃគូគាត់មួយអត់មានគណៈបកសិទ្ធិមនុស្សចូលរួមព្រោះខាងលោកកឹមសុខាគាត់អត់ចូលរួមបោះឆ្នោតទេបាទអញ្ចឹងវាបាត់ពាក់កណ្ដាលមែនវា logic ណាបាទអញ្ចឹងសម្លេងដែលគណៈបកភ្លើងទៀនទទួលបាន 1.6 លានវាពាក់កណ្ដាលវាឆ្លើយតបអាហ្នឹងវា logic មែនតើសម្លេងឆ្នោតហើយកំណើនប្រជាពលរដ្ឋធម្មតាក្នុងមួយឆ្នាំកើន5ឆ្នាំកើនប្រមាណអញ្ចឹងប្រជាពលរដ្ឋបានគាំទ្រថែមមកបោះឆ្នោតជូនគណៈបកប្រជាជននិងគណៈបកនានាសមាជិកគណៈបកផ្សេងទៀត swing vote ហ្នឹងមកគាំទ្រគណៈបកប្រជាជនឡើងរហូតដល់ 5 លានជាង
He also stated that the Commune Sangkat Council election of the fifth mandate is a multi-party election, which gives the people the right to choose their preferred local leader to serve the interests of the public. He further extended his congratulations to the Candlelight Party for winning more than 2,000 seats. The fifth Commune Sangkat Council election was held on 5th June to elect 11,622 Commune Sangkat seats nationwide out of 1,652 communes. Nearly 7.3 million people went to vote for the election, equivalent to more than 80% of the 9.2 million registered voters. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Secretary-General of Disability Action Council and the Secretary-General of the National Council for the Social Protection held a meeting on Tuesday morning with the aim of establishing joint cooperation between the two institutions to help persons with disabilities in Cambodia. EAC News reporter Decca Nin has more details.
The meeting was held at the Ministry of Economy and Finance, chaired by the Secretary of State of the Ministry of Social Affairs and Secretary-General of the Disability Action Council, Amchan Makara, with Under-Secretary of State of the Ministry of Economy and Secretary-General of the National Council for Social Protection, John Nadet, along with the UN Development Program Officers and Access Project Officer. The two councils discussed a number of possible collaborations, such as the draft terms of reference with input from the National Council for Social Protection on the draft selection of the international technical advisors assisting in the development of guidelines signed by both councils, particularly guidelines on disability inclusive social protection. The two sides also discussed allowing the technical working groups of the two institutions to continue reviewing and working with development partners such as UNDP and Access, and to also determine the composition of leaders and relevant officials to provide training on the guidelines of building disability-inclusive environments and social protection, and to identify mechanisms for implementing these guidelines. Guidelines for disability-inclusive social protection are necessary for the Disability Action Council, Capital and Provincial Disability Action Council, National Social Protection Council, Department of Disability Welfare, Department of Social Welfare, Ministry of Social Affairs, Disability Representative Organization, and relevant institutions to be able to identify disability-inclusive social protection or social assistance that is being or will be established by the laws, policies, and guidelines of the Royal Government of Cambodia. This is to ensure that disability inclusion is integrated into social protection policies, making policymakers better aware of inclusive practices in social protection policies, with principles that practitioners can also apply to ensure that persons with disabilities can actually benefit from the policies being implemented. In addition, it will enable persons with disabilities to fully participate in the drafting of laws and regulations and benefit from those policies and regulations put in place. According to the CSES 2019 to 2020 report, 1 in 5 households, about 18% of total households in Cambodia, spend more than 10% of their total expenditure on healthcare, while the other 5% spend more than 25% of their earnings on healthcare. Persons with disabilities are likely to pay more for healthcare, as nearly 2/3 of adults are less likely to be employed. Most persons with disabilities and their families live in low-income and insecure conditions. 35% of persons with disabilities have been living on less than 10,100 real or $2.5 a day in 2019, while 78% live on less than 18,000 real or $4.55. The poverty rate among persons without disabilities is 17.5%, and among persons with disabilities is 21.1%. Therefore, guidelines for disability-inclusive social protection are increasingly needed to help persons with disabilities to be more protected and more involved in society, to be able to address the poverty and health issues that they are facing. Deganin, EAC News.
The Secretary of State and the spokesman for the Ministry of Health, Dr. Al Van Dien, has urged people to practice consistent food safety standards in order for everyone to maintain good health and protect themselves from various diseases. She shared these remarks on the occasion of the World Food Safety Day on Tuesday, the 7th of June 2022. EAC News reporter Dashana Guchin has more.
In a voice message posted on social media on Monday, 6 June, Dr. Al Van Dien said that a lack of good food hygiene will affect health and social productivity. She urges people to pay more attention to food safety from the stage of planting vegetables to serving food.
សូមឲ្យលោកយកចិត្តទុកដាក់ទៅលើការបរិភោគចំណីអាហាររបស់ខ្លួនធ្វើការផ្គត់ផ្គង់នៅម្ហូបអាហារនេះជូនទៅដល់ក្រុមគ្រួសារជាពិសេសមាតាបិតានិងអាព្យាបាលការចិញ្ចឹមបីបាច់ថែរក្សាកូនចៅរបស់ខ្លួននេះក៏សូមអនុវត្តឲ្យបានល្អត្រឹមត្រូវនៅសុវត្ថិភាពអនាម័យចំណីអាហារឲ្យបានល្អជៀសវាងយើងប្រើប្រាស់ម្ហូបអាហារដែលហួសសុពលភាពឬក៏អាហារដែលមិនមានហៅថាសុវត្ថិភាពល្អហើយអាហារដែលទុកយូរដែលវាអាចធ្វើឲ្យមានការប៉ះពាល់ទៅដល់សុខភាពរបស់យើង
The spokesperson for the Ministry of Health recommends good hand hygiene and food hygiene by washing vegetables, fruits, fish, meat, plates, and knives regularly, cooking food well, separating different types of food to not be confused, and to not keep food for too long. She said if food must be stored cold, it should be kept below 5 degrees Celsius, and if it must be stored hot, it should be kept above 60 degrees Celsius. She told people to avoid eating raw meat which has not been cooked properly, as it contains various viruses that can spread. She said, in the past, there have been outbreaks of various diseases, which can be transmitted from wild animals or rodents as well as mammals. So if you eat meat, please make sure to cook it properly. All the food we eat is to be cooked properly, and vegetables should be washed properly as well. If you have any health problems, Dr. Al Van Dien urges people to consult a medical professional. She urges those with health concerns related to epidemics to call the emergency number 115 or go to the nearest hospital as soon as possible. Darshana Gauchen, EAC News.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favorite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
Russian UN Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia stormed out of the UN Secretary Council meeting on Monday the 6th of June as the European Council President Charles Michel addressed the 15-member body and accused Moscow of fueling a global food crisis with its invasion of Ukraine.
Speaking directly to Nebenzia as he walked out, Michel said, "You may leave the room. Maybe it's easier not to listen to the truth." Michel had also accused Russian troops of war crimes and crimes against humanity, specifically citing reports of sexual violence, the focus of the Security Council meeting, and describing it as a tactic of torture, terror, and repression. During his own statement earlier in the meeting, Nebenzia had categorically refuted any accusations of sexual violence by Russian soldiers, condemning what he said was a lie.
Mr. Ambassador of the Russian Federation, let's be honest. The Kremlin is using food supplies as a stealth missile against developing countries. The dramatic consequences of Russia's war are spilling over across the globe, and this is driving up food prices, pushing people into poverty and destabilizing entire regions. And Russia is solely responsible for this food crisis, Russia alone, despite the Kremlin's campaign of lies and disinformation. I've seen it with my own eyes a few weeks ago in Odessa. Millions of tons of grain and wheat stuck in containers and ships because of Russian warships in the Black Sea and because of Russia's attack on transport infrastructure. And it is Russian tanks, Russian bombs and mines that are preventing Ukraine from planting and harvesting. The Kremlin is also targeting grain storages and stealing grain in Ukraine while shifting the blame on others. This is cowardly, this is propaganda, pure and simple propaganda. Let's get to the facts. The EU has no sanctions on the agricultural sector in Russia, zero. And even our sanctions on the Russian transport sector do not go beyond our EU borders. You may leave the room. Maybe it's easier not to listen to the truth, the ambassador.
We hear reports of Russian forces wielding sexual violence as a weapon of war. Sexual violence is a war crime, a crime against humanity, a tactic of torture, terror, and repression, shameful acts in a shameful war, and this must be exposed to the light of day and persecuted without impunity. Russia's UN ambassador Vasily Nebenzia replied, "I would once again like to categorically refute any accusations against Russian service personnel of sexual violence. We roundly condemn this lie." The Russian UN ambassador only answered the sexual statement. He did not respond to any other statements. Russia's February 24th invasion of Ukraine has fueled a global food crisis, with prices of grains, cooking oils, fuel, and fertilizer soaring. Russia and Ukraine account for nearly a third of global wheat supplies, while Russia is also a fertilizer exporter and Ukraine is an exporter of corn and sunflower oil. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres is trying to broker what he calls a package deal to resume Ukrainian food exports and Russian food and fertilizer exports. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov is due to visit Turkey on Wednesday to discuss unlocking grain exports from Ukraine.
British Prime Minister Boris Johnson survived a confidence vote on Monday, but a large rebellion of his Conservative Party over the so-called Partygate scandal dealt a blow to his authority and leaves him struggle with a win-back support.
Johnson, who scored a sweeping election victory in 2019, has been under increasing pressure after he and staff held alcohol-fueled parties in his Downing Street office and residence when Britain was under lockdowns to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic. The vote was a blow to Johnson, with 41% of his lawmakers casting ballots against his leadership after months of scandals and gaffes that has raised questions over his authority to govern Britain and knocked his standing among the public. But Johnson, a master of political comebacks, instead described the vote as a decisive result, meaning that as a government, we can move on and focus on the stuff that I think really matters to people. We can focus on what we're doing to help people with the cost of living, what we're doing to clear the COVID-19 backlogs, what we're doing to make streets and communities safer by putting more police out, said Johnson, who for weeks has tried to move the national conversation away from Partygate. It is a change of fortune for Johnson and underlines the death anger against him. He was met with a chorus of jeers and boos and some muted cheers at events to celebrate the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth in recent days. Several lawmakers said the vote, which saw 211 lawmakers cast ballots in favor of Johnson against 148, was worse than expected for a prime minister, once seemingly unassailable after winning the Conservatives' largest majority in more than 3 decades. Boris Johnson will be relieved at this vote, but he will also understand that the next priority is to rebuild the cohesion of the party. David Jones, a former minister, told Reuters, "I am sure he will be equal to the challenge." Others were less optimistic, with one Conservative lawmaker saying on condition of anonymity, "It is clearly much worse than most people were expecting, but it's too early to say what will happen now." Roger Gale, a longtime critic of Johnson, urged the Prime Minister to go back to Downing Street tonight and consider very carefully where he goes from here. By winning the confidence vote, Johnson has secured a reprieve for 12 months when lawmakers cannot bring another challenge. But his predecessor, Theresa May, scored better in her 2018 confidence vote, only to resign 6 months later. Dozens of Conservative lawmakers have voiced concerns over whether Johnson 57 has lost his authority to govern Britain, which is facing the risk of recession, rising fuel and food prices, and strike-inflicted travel chaos in the capital, London. But his cabinet rallied around him and highlighted what they said were the successes of the government.
A sort of audience that's largely made up of people who's, monarchists and presumably reasonably traditional people who you would think would be his sort of core supporters. I thought that was so telling, actually, that he got booed. I think that was almost like, that felt like a turning point to me, actually.
A quick rollout of COVID-19 vaccinations, and Britain's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A majority of the Conservatives lawmakers, at least 180, would have had to vote against Johnson for him to be removed. Earlier, a spokesperson for Johnson's Downing Street office said the vote would allow the government to draw a line and move on, and that the Prime Minister welcomed the opportunity to make his case to lawmakers. Johnson, a former London mayor, rose to power at Westminster as the face of the Brexit campaign in a 2016 referendum and won the 2019 election with the slogan "To get Brexit done." Jacob Rees-Mogg, Brexit Opportunities Minister, told Sky News that completing Britain's departure from the European Union would be significantly at risk without his drive and energy. Johnson has locked horns with Brussels over Northern Ireland, raising the prospect of more barriers for British trade and alarming leaders in Ireland, Europe, and the United States about risk to the province's 1998 peace deal. But it was the months of stories of what went on in Downing Street, including fights and alcohol-induced vomiting, when many people were prevented from saying goodbye to loved ones at funerals, that did the real damage. The move led to lawmakers from different wings of the party revealing that they had turned against their leader. One former ally accused the Prime Minister of insulting both the electorate and the party by staying in power. "You have presided over a culture of casual law-breaking at 10 Downing Street in relation to COVID," Jesse Norman, a former junior minister, said before the vote. Johnson's anti-corruption chief John Penrose also quit.
The Dominican Republic's Environment Minister, Orlando George Mero, was shot dead in his office on Monday, 6th of June, authorities said.
A spokesperson for the president's office, Homero Figueroa, said in a video posted to Twitter on Monday afternoon that a suspect identified as Miguel Cruz was arrested. Figueroa said Cruz was a childhood friend of the minister, without giving a potential motive for the attack. Employees at the Ministry of Environment and Natural Resources told journalists that they had heard at least 7 shots from within the building. Police units arrived on the scene shortly after. Spokesman for Dominican Republic Presidency Homero Vega said, The Minister of the Environment, Orlando Jorge Mera, lost his life when he was attacked in his office with a firearm. Miguel Cruz, the person identified as the one who shot, was a friend of the deceased minister. The person responsible is under the custody of the National Police and the Public Ministry. The reasons for the fact are under investigation in a timely manner. We will continue to share more information. Mera, a 55-year-old lawyer, was the son of former President Salvador Jorge Blanco, who was in office from 2002 to 2006. He is survived by his wife, Patricia Selma Villegas, and his 2 children. His son, Orlando Jorge Villegas, is a federal legislator and member of the Modern Revolutionary Party. The president and the government have made themselves available to the minister's family, Figueroa said.
Let's have a look at today's finance. The CXX index is currently 505.29 points down, 1.43 points or 0.28%. The daily exchange rate is 4,061 real to the US dollar. Now let's have a look what else is happening in finance around the world. Global equity markets rose on Monday on signs of the easing of the COVID-19 pandemic-related and other restrictions by China, and investors took an expected interest rate hikes in coming days in their stride despite crude oil hitting $120 a barrel. The dollar gained against the euro ahead of the European Central Bank policy meeting on Thursday, but risk and appetite abated after being higher early in the day. Sterling rose ahead of the confidence vote in the Parliament and Prime Minister Boris Johnson won. Diddy shares closed up 24.3% after early surging more than 50% on the journal report. The news earlier helped Hong Kong's Hang Seng Tech Index close 4.6% higher. The major US stock index rose and did the big bounces for the Britain, Germany, France, Italy and Spain, all closing 1% higher. The Pan-European Stock 600 index rose 0.92% and the MCIS's gauge, the stocks across the globe, gained 0.35%. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.08% after briefly dipping lower. The SP 500 gained 0.20%, and the Nasdaq Composite added 0.25%. Growth shares rose 0.3% or more than doubled at 0.1% advance in value stocks. US Treasury yields rose as the market prepared for the sale of $96 billion in debt this week ahead of the data Friday, expected to show US inflation is still running hot. The Consumer Price Index is expected to have gained 0.7% last month compared to 0.3% in April, with the annual inflation unchanged at 8.3% according to median estimate of economics. 3 US debt auctions this week are likely to push higher yields higher as banks and investors prepare to absorb the insurance. The yield on a 10-year Treasury notes was up 0.5 basis points at 3.040%, the first time the benchmark yields have topped 3% in almost 3 weeks. At the ECB meeting on Thursday, President Christine Lagarde is considered certain to confirm the end of the bond buying this month and the first rate increase in July, so the jury is out on whether it will be 25 or 50 base points, as some investment banks ramped up their expectations. Money markets are priced at 130 base points at a rate increase by year end, with the 50 base points moved to single meeting fully priced at the October. A high number and only with expectations of an aggressive tightening by the Fed next week, with markets already priced for the half-point increase in June and July and almost 200 basis points by the end of year. The dollar index rose 0.274%, with the euro down 0.23% at $1.69.4. The yen weakened at 0.73% at 131.85, and the sterling rose 0.32% at 1.2528. Oil prices were largely unchanged in a choppy trade, buoyed to Saudi Arabia raising its July crude prices, but amid doubts that the higher output target or OPEC plus producers would ease tightly supply. US crude futures settled down 37 cents at $118.50 a barrel, and Brent fell 21 cents to settle $119.51. Gold prices slid, pressured by the uptick of the dollar on Treasury yields. US gold futures settled down at 0.4% at $1,843.70 an ounce. Asian stock markets edged lower on Tuesday. The yen hit a 20-year low and bond markets wavered. Investors nervously awaited US inflation figures and the central bank meetings in Australia, Europe and the next week, the United States. The 10-year Treasury yield rose 9.9 basic points overnight and hit 3.0580% early in Asian session. The move has pulled the dollar higher and poured cold water and initial optimism about China's emerge from COVID-19 lockdowns. The dollar added another 0.6% against the yen on Tuesday to touch 132.75 in the highest since 2002, as the Bank of Japan is a standard laggard with the rest of the world moves to try to hit inflation hard with interest rate hikes. The 10-year gilt yields rose as far as 10.2 base points to a 7-year high at 2.256% on Monday. The MCIS broadcast index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan fell 0.8% as Hong Kong's market, paired by some of Monday's gains to Japan's Nikkei, inched up 0.3%. Markets are pricing about 3/4 of a chance of a 40 base points hike that would bring the cash rate at 0.75%, and analysts advise that the magnitude could bring the Aussie dollar with it. The Aussie dollar wobbled at 0.4% lower to 71.69 cents in the morning trade against. The euro was pushed 0.2% lower and below its 50-day moving average to $1.677, but kept up further losses by nerves about the possibility of a rate hike or a hawkish tone from the European Central Bank, which meets on Thursday. Bitcoin rose 5.2% to $31,441.76 at 8 o'clock on Monday, adding 1,552.78 cents to its previous close. The world's biggest and best-known cryptocurrency is down 34.8% from the year high at 48,234 on March 28th. Ether and coin linked to the Ethereum blockchain network rose 3.17% to $1,862.14 on Monday, adding $57.16 to the previous close. That's the latest news on finance. Tune in tomorrow for more. Now, let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for tomorrow. And finally, treasures. Real-life treasures have been recently discovered of Colombia, with centuries-old shipwrecks complete with gold coin treasure.
According to officials, Colombian naval officials conducting underwater monitoring of the long-sunken San Jose galleon discovered 2 other historical shipwrecks nearby. One is believed to be a Spanish colonial-era boat, and the other thought to be from the time of Colombia's War of Independence from Spain some 200 years ago. The San Jose galleon sunk in 1708 near Colombia's Caribbean port of Cartagena. Some historians believe its cargo of treasure could be worth billions by today. New images of the shipwreck revealed gold coins, cannons, as well as other items such as vases and crockery. Authorities are working to raise the shipwrecks and its contents from the seabed for display in museums.
Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup here on the EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, check our website, eacnews.asia, or search EAC News on Telegram, Smart TV, or your favourite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. We'll see you then.